Our story begins on planet Earth, where the leaders of the world had gathered together to make a decision no one ever thought humanity would reach, which was to blow up a whole continent off the Earth's map using hydrogen bombs and annihilate everyone and everything on it. And all of this because of the obsession of people with superheroes. It all began a couple of days back when the whole world was going crazy over superhero movies and comic adaptations, resulting in the film industry pulling in trillions of dollars in revenue, following which millions of copies of comics were sold out worldwide, even leading to the creation of hero theme parks, which attracted over 515 million people every year. It was just another day, people spending time with their families without any care in the world. That was when a child spotted an unexpected sight, and thinking it was something cool, he shouted for his father to look up. In the middle of the place, people spotted a human hovering in the air while staring at something. Initially, everyone thought it was just another publicity stunt, and film crews were planning on filming a new superhero movie in this location. That was until they saw this horrific sight of the man blasting a person with some kind of a laser beam. And this was the last thing those people expected to witness on their day off. And before anyone could process what just happened, the screams of panic echoed through the whole place. Following that, all the remaining survivors began running to save their lives from whatever monster was standing before them. But in the middle of those screams, they heard a loud voice cutting through the chaos, telling all of them to shut up. And this surprised all of them, so they turned towards the maniac to hear what he wanted to say, only for him to tell them to listen closely if they could hear a sound. Yeah, as they turned to the sky, they literally saw hell raining down from the clouds, and no, this was no natural phenomenon. This man had deliberately redirected passing asteroids towards Earth, and that was the day the great city of Tokyo completely fell, all because of one man, and no one knew the answer to why. But that was just the beginning. On the very next day of that unimaginable disaster which claimed the lives of millions, the west coast of America was also annihilated by the same guy, and then Greenland on the third day. And day 4, the whole of northern France was reduced down to the ground along with all the people living there. And in just these 5 days, this man had wiped out 57% of the whole world's human population. In response to all of this destruction, all the governments of the world formed a united world army to deal with this threat. And the answer they came to was simple. The only way humans know how to fix problems, and that was to glass the entire region along with the man inside it, hoping that would be enough to stop him. And not just any nukes, the ones being used against this monster were 100 megaton hydrogen bombs. And that was the day 3 adjacent countries were obliterated by that explosion. But the one they were trying to kill remained unfazed, because to that man, that blast was just a warm suntan. The story cuts to the present, to America, where the entire White House was thrown into chaos and urgency because of a news broadcast claiming they had finally identified the man responsible for all the destruction. According to the report, that man's name was Friday, and the reason he revealed himself was because he wanted to arrange a direct meeting with the President of the United States, a man by the name of James Logan. Although it was surprising that someone like him would request a meeting with the president of a global superpower, the man without any hesitation agreed to it. Fast forward, and he was being escorted to the meeting place by the United States Secret Service. As for his safety, one of the officials suggested he wear a protective vest before going in, but he was reminded they were talking about a man who had shrugged off a nuclear bomb, and if someone like that wants him dead, no vest in the world would be enough to save him. On top of that, the whole world's eyes were locked on him, and as the man representing humanity, he refused to show any fear and chose to face the guy man to man. After a while, he was seen standing face to face with a tower of muscle. The two greeted each other, and surprisingly, the maniac was actually being polite as he claimed how much he was looking forward to meeting him. But James cut him off, telling the guy to drop it with that crap and just say what he wanted and why he was doing all this. Friday showed no problem giving him the answer, and he told the guy that right now the only thing he wanted was to take him out in front of the entire world. And the reason was because he wanted to witness humanity's reaction when they see their leader being taken out right before their eyes. The moment the guy did that, the military moved in and began blasting him with high-caliber rounds. Yeah, like something like that was ever going to be enough to stop him. After he was done having his fun, he casually tossed the man into the sky, and his limp body came crashing down right in front of his people. Despite being showered by bullets, the man ignored the men and kept walking up to the cameras because he had something to say to the world, and it was his story and the reason he was doing all this. Turns out he had a rough childhood. His family was so poor that he had to rummage through trash cans every day just to survive. As if that wasn't bad enough, one day his mother suddenly fell ill, and despite the illness being treatable, the doctors refused to do anything because their family was too poor to afford her treatment, and he ended up losing his mother at a very young age. Following that incident, his father completely broke down and blamed himself for everything, and slowly turned into an alcoholic, until one day he lost his life after being shot by a cop who caught him trying to steal booze from a supermarket. That day, he lost everything, and no one even spared him a glance. After finishing that story, he asked the audience if something like that still brings a tear in their eyes even knowing the heinous things he committed in the past few days. And if so, then he has just one thing to say to all of them, and it was that all of them are a bunch of morons who actually bought all that crap because there is no deeper reason behind what he did. He was just bored, and human suffering is the only form of entertainment he could enjoy. Following that broadcast and witnessing the death of the President of the United States, the entire world descended into a state of panic, especially after realizing that all those people who'd been deleted by Friday died for nothing, and their deaths were completely meaningless. And soon what little sparks of hope people still held onto in their hearts began to fade away. The story cuts elsewhere in a frozen forest, where something was seen sticking out of the ground, and that something was an air vent leading somewhere deeper into the ground. Beneath over 250 meters of dirt was a massive secret facility, working on humanity's last hope to stop that maniac and save what little remained of mankind. In that same room, a dark-haired scientist was reporting on their progress to a man and how they were extremely close to completing this project. As for the man himself, this right here is the commander of the World United Army's Swiss base, by the name of Yakin, and an absolute badass who, despite the whole of humanity giving up, refused to back down without a fight, and was dead set on taking down the bastard who was running around destroying literal nations for fun. But on that day, the one thing they were afraid of the most finally happened, as an explosion shook the entire facility, and the one responsible for that explosion, none other than Friday himself. And the reason he came to this place was simple. What they were working on here was the first thing that actually had the potential to stop him. Panic broke out at the sight, but Commander Yakin remained unfazed, and so did his subordinate who was waiting for his orders. As for the guy, he turned his eyes to the left and found his men standing their ground against a literal monster, knowing full well they stood no chance. Then he looked to the right, same thing there, no fear, no hesitation on the faces of the men who lost everything at the hands of this demon. And then the man spoke, and his order was for the man to run and not look back, because he might be the only hope humanity has left of stopping this guy. But the man knew there was no use running. After all, escaping that man was impossible. Yakin knew that too well, which was why he was ordering him to survive no matter what happens, and find others like them. People who still have the will to fight and the resolve to protect what is left of humanity. The guy knew Yakin was right, so he thanked the man for everything, after which he turned around and ran towards the emergency exit. The maniac, on the other hand, stood there acting all touched after hearing that little heroic speech from the guy. So Yakin told him to drop it with the bull. Turning towards his men, he thanked them all for sticking with him to the very end, and promised even if the whole world forgets about what all of them had done for humanity, it won't matter, because he will always remember their sacrifices. And the absolute Chad, while smiling at the face of death, brought out his gun to buy the survivors time to escape. With that, all the men opened fire at the guy, and the entire place erupted with the sound of relentless gunfire. With that, the story cuts elsewhere, and a man was seen shooting at something using his sniper rifle, and his target was a weird-looking deer with massive fangs growing out of its mouth. As for the one responsible for shooting that thing, it's that same scientist from back then, who thanks to Yakin's sacrifice managed to escape and was living his life in hiding. As for the place, this is the same ruined city of Seoul where Friday first appeared, and he had been hiding here for the past 5 years. Next chapter, and he was seen walking into his home with a deer on his back, and the first thing he saw after stepping into the place was 2 kids sitting right next to the door. And one of them, seeing that deer on his back, sprang to her feet in excitement. But as she turned towards her brother, the guy was nowhere to be seen, along with the 2 treats they were planning on sharing. Next panel, and she was seen running after the fool to get her treat back. And while running, they accidentally stepped on a painting that a 3rd kid was working on, and the result was pretty predictable, because now instead of 2, there were 3 kids running around the whole house while screaming their lungs out. And our hero, who was just staring at all of them from the side, didn't know how he was supposed to respond to what he was seeing. But hey, he was happy, because at least he had people around him he cared about, and that alone was the only thing keeping his sanity intact. The story cuts 4 years into the past, and he was seen wandering around the ruins of the once great city, looking for supplies. And no, at that time humanity didn't completely collapse after the apocalypse. There were still some people left, but the condition of the world was beyond saving, and since food had become the only form of payment after the fall of all the governments, people were doing absolutely anything to get their hands on anything edible, meaning supermarkets basically turned into gold mines. And 2 of them he spotted trying to break into a supermarket where someone was taking shelter to try and steal what they could find. That was when they heard a cheerful voice of a person from the back, and both men froze. Turns out, our hero had mistaken the 2 fools for store clerks and was casually asking if he can buy some ramen. But then, right in the middle of it all, his face suddenly dropped because one of the men lunged at him with a hammer. But after spending a whole year on the run from Friday, our boy had gotten a whole lot faster and stronger, and thanks to that, he managed to move out of the way. But moving out of the way wasn't the only thing he did in that moment, because for some reason, the guy could feel his liver twisting in pain. And the reason was simple. Just as the guy's hammer was about to hit our boy, he sidestepped and in that very split second, delivered a punch to the guy's side. But while he was distracted with that fool, he failed to notice the second goon who was also coming at him, and thanks to that distraction, the muscle guy managed to wrap his arms around our boy's waist, after which he body slammed the kid to the ground. With the kid completely immobilized, the grinning fool tried saying something cocky to mock the kid, but in the very next panel, he was seen drooling, completely knocked out, since, as it would have it, it wasn't our hero who fell into that trap. It was that guy himself who stupidly delivered himself to our boy, and thinking he was a weakling, he dropped his guard. After he was done with the guy, he turned to the first fool, and with that same innocent expression, he asked the man to take his friend back home since he wasn't feeling too good at the moment. Next panel, and the guy was heard cursing under his breath for running into that freak who not only humiliated them, but he was also stuck carrying his fat ass all the way back to their hideout. Back with our hero who finally found what he came here looking for. But just as he was about to leave, he heard some voices coming from the back of the store. So to check who it was, he walked into the place and surprisingly came across 3 kids along with a woman who seemed like she wasn't doing too well. As for the girl at the front, she was fully ready to beat the fool with her broom and protect the lady behind her, but was quickly reminded by the stupid one besides her that they stood no chance against a grown man, so she should drop it with the tough guy act. But the third one, more level-headed of the 3, asked the 2 to stop arguing with each other since they needed to stick together, but almost immediately both of them turned against him since it was his idea to come to this place, and now they were stuck in this mess. In the middle of their arguing, they suddenly noticed the man slowly walking up to the unconscious woman. So all of them got on their guard, warning the guy to stop or face the wrath of their brooms. But since the guy didn't even bother answering, the girl swung the thing at his butt. But that part of his body was so damned hard that the thing just bounced back, so the one with, wait, does that kid have like 4 sets of eyes? Whoa, that's weird. Anyway, he went for the man's back, but no use again, so with no other choice, he was forced to use his ultimate move and hoped that would be enough to stop him. So mustering up all his power, he swung that wooden thing at the man's legs, and God knows how, but he ended up hitting poor Youngjae instead. Yup, he definitely wasn't holding back on that one, because the kid immediately fell to the floor, writhing in agony. With even that failing, the kid realized he had no other choice. If he wanted to stop this man from laying hands on his beautiful sensei, he would need to put everything on the line, and boom. Not sure what he was thinking, but he jumped at the kid and latched onto his leg in hopes of stopping him. As all that drama was going on, our boy was casually examining the woman and noticed her whole body was burning up because of a fever, meaning if he left her here in this condition, she wouldn't be able to survive for long. So he took off his bag, and that scared the kids even more because they were sure the man was planning to do something bad to her, but to their surprise, he just pulled out some medicine and reached it out to the child. And just before heading out, he apologized to the sweet little thing for scaring her like that and assured her her friend would be fine. She just needs to give her that medicine on time. And of course, that little chimpanzee was still latched onto his leg, but since his legs were made out of steel, he didn't even realize he was unknowingly kidnapping that little rascal, but thankfully he got tired on his own and released his leg. After the man was gone, Youngjae was screaming at the kid since he was sure he did that on purpose back then. As for the girl, she had something else going through her head, and knowing the kind of world they lived in, she told the 2 they would need to make a decision if they all wanted to survive. Cut a couple of minutes, and the 3 fools had completely abandoned the women and were following a complete stranger whom they met like 10 minutes ago. But they did make one thing clear. They weren't following him, he just happened to be walking in the same direction as them. Our smiling Chad reminded the girl he never said anything about them following him or not, and quietly turned around and began walking again. And out of nowhere, he changed direction and turned to the other side. And to his surprise, the kids did the same and began walking toward the same direction. By then, Doho was convinced the kids were following him, and knowing what this was about, he asked the 3 if they wanted to tag along with him. Cut back to the present, and our hero was seen recalling that time, thinking how since that day, all of them had been living under the same roof, and eventually he didn't even realize when it happened, but all of them turned into this one happy little family. Just then, he heard a sweet voice from the side suggesting he change clothes because the ones he was wearing were all covered in dirt. Well, turns out he had a loving wife as well. Well, technically not his wife, because neither of them even had the guts to confess their true feelings to each other, even after living in the same place for 4 years. And yes, she is that same woman he found with the kids back then. And this absolute buffoon, instead of sealing the deal, had been calling her Nona this whole time. And if you are wondering what Nuna is, it's a Korean term used for older sister. As for the woman, she told the kid she already heated the water for him and suggested he take a shower while she prepared dinner for them. And out of nowhere, she asked him to hand her those clothes so she could take them to wash. And that obviously caught the kid by surprise. And seeing him making that face, the woman teasingly asked what he was thinking. Since she never asked him to strip, she just needed that top. Our hero, trying not to sound like a complete idiot, obeyed and began taking the thing off. And damn, not sure what this woman had been feeding him because his back was built as hell. Just look at those muscles. Well, anyway, after he was done, he asked the woman to hand her those as well and offered to take them to the washer for her, but she refused and suggested he clean up and take some rest instead, since he had been working really hard. And just as the kid was about to turn to leave, she casually teased him with a comment about how he's been looking a lot more attractive these days, and just before leaving, wondered which girl was going to come and take him away from them. Yeah, the only girl he cared about was her, but was too shy to admit it out loud, so he ended up just staring at her, unsure of what to do, until he saw Junsik's bruised face staring at him with a question if he can teach him how to fight. The story fast forwards a couple of hours, and our hero was seen standing atop his roof staring into the distance while thinking about the beauty living under the same roof as him. Just then, he heard a voice calling out his name. Turning to the side, he found his waifu standing there with a hot cup of barley tea in hand. He took the thing, thanked the girl for always taking care of him, and commented how the sky looked so beautiful with all those sparkling stars, something he never thought he'd get to witness, since before the end of the world, it was impossible to see this sight, since Seoul used to never sleep at night. In the middle of that, he told the woman they might have to leave this place, since even though they had enough food and supplies to last them for a while, the supermarkets around this area were almost out of anything useful, so they might need to head to another district to find more supplies. The woman reminded the kid how it was dangerous out there and asked if there really wasn't any other way. Our boy assured the woman they would be fine since he had already scouted that area and didn't find any traces of any human taking shelter in that place. But more importantly, Junsik's birthday was coming, so he wanted to treat everyone to something special. To that, the woman thanked the kid for everything he had been doing for her and the kids and knew it wasn't easy for him, and she felt bad since she didn't know how they were ever going to repay him for everything. Our hero didn't know how he was supposed to answer that at first, so after thinking for a bit, he told the woman that all of them were the first real family he ever had, and that was all the repayment he could ever ask from them. After saying what he wanted to say, he suggested they head down before they catch a cold. That was when he heard her voice asking a question if all of them being a family makes the two of them husband and wife. Yeah. The kid froze, unable to even say a single word, and the face he was making made the woman chuckle a little as she told him she was just messing with him. And our blushing fool forced some words out of his mouth, telling the woman not to joke like that with him, but hey, deep down he didn't mind that idea and couldn't deny that thinking about that made him happy. The story fast forwards, and all of them were seen making their way to their next destination to find a better shelter. But Yoonjae kept complaining since he didn't like the cold weather and suggested they wait for all this snow to settle down and clear up. In the middle of his complaining, a snowball came flying in, crashing right on his left eye, and then a second one on his right eye. And before they knew it, they were back at their usual shenanigans. As for our hero, he was smiling, watching all of them having fun. That was when he noticed something hitting his own arm. So he turned to the location and found the woman grinning at him. Without saying anything, he just turned around and crouched to make a snowball of his own. But that thing was less of a snowball and more of a snow bulldozer. Cut a couple of minutes, and all of them were seen helping Sigurd make a snowman. Man, I love this story. I just hope things stay like this forever for all of them. Well, before long, they arrived at their destination, so the kids, being kids, immediately rushed toward the building to grab as many sweets as they could get their hands on. As for our hero, he noticed something strange, so he turned around and saw some of the branches on a tree all snapped and scattered, and that got him wondering if it was a person who broke all those things. Before he could ponder on that, he suddenly heard the kids asking him to hurry up. Although he had a bad feeling about this, he decided to just leave it and focus on the task at hand. So he started walking toward the place, thinking it could have just been the wind. But still, he couldn't help but wonder if he would be able to keep all of them safe forever, and what kind of ending was waiting for him in this new world. Cut to the inside, and he was seen handing out whistles to the gang and instructed them to use them if they found themselves in any trouble. After the instructions, he started splitting all of them into teams of 2. Junsik and Youngjae were to search one section of the mall, while Sewa and Nuna were to head to the other section. As for him, he would be heading out on his own and instructed all of them to meet at this exact spot in 1 hour. After a while, the women were seen in their natural habitat, the clothing area, and despite everything around them being literally free and them living at the end of the world, Nuna was having a hard time picking the prettiest dresses for everyone. On top of that, she was acting like a full-time mother, going back and forth on whether to pick bigger clothes for the kids since they were growing so fast, or just stick with their current sizes. And after thinking for a bit, she decided to go with the fitting clothes since her children needed to look the best. Suddenly, she heard Sejoa's voice calling her name, so she turned and saw the girl showing off her new, I don't know what those are called, since I'm not very good at women's clothes, but it was something that was matching to something Nuna usually wears, and she was extremely excited about stumbling upon it. But according to Nona, she was looking even prettier than her in that thing, and was sure she could totally be a model one day. As the two of them were busy having the time of their lives, the boys were actually picking out the most necessary things a person needs in an apocalypse, and that was snacks, of course, because obviously snacks are the most important thing to stock in times like these. And man, the amount these two managed to stuff into that backpack was actually impressive, and the buffoon carrying all that stuff was even asking Youngbai to grab more since he could easily carry it. But in the excitement, he tried making a quick turn and ended up tripping on his own feet. And the outcome was pretty predictable because Yoonji saw a whole ass mountain of snacks coming his way, and then boom, he completely disappeared under the sudden avalanche of snacks. Yep, the guy was not happy getting stuck with the idiot who, instead of checking up on him, was busy protecting his snacks. As he was getting ready to pummel him to the ground, Junsik spotted a can of Pringles rolling away to the side. So instead of helping Youngjae, he began walking after the thing. Well, at least nothing bad happened since he managed to catch the can, but then he spotted something to the side that caught his eye, so he turned around to see what it was. Cut to Youngjae, who was forcing his way out of the pile of snacks. Furious, he shouted the fool's name, but when he turned to see where he was, the kid was nowhere to be seen. Cut to our boy, who was looking for supplies in some other section of the building, and after scanning that entire section of the building, he didn't find any signs of anyone taking shelter in this place. On top of that, this whole time he had been thinking about those broken branches he saw outside, and since there was no one here, he just figured that it was probably the wind that did that to that tree. But still, for such a big mart, there were so many supplies left behind, which would mean this place didn't get raided by many people, or maybe there was some other reason behind it. Sure enough, he found the answer to that question behind a door, that the reason this place was still full of supplies was because the people who were taking shelter in this building never left. After a bit, he was seen covering the remains with some clothes, but while doing so, he could not help but feel uneasy, since after everything he had been through, he was growing used to seeing things like this, and it didn't bother him as much as it used to when the world was still intact. Back when the world was somehow hanging by a thread and news was still working, it was reported that around 5.7 billion people lost their lives to the destruction brought by that man. And after the governments used nukes to try and stop that guy's rampage, things got even worse, and some of the areas on the planet became completely uninhabitable, and what remained of humanity scattered all around the globe to hide from Friday in hopes of finding a way to stop that madman and bring back some sense of normalcy. But sadly, all their efforts failed in the end, and now he has no idea how many people are still alive or what happened to that Friday since that guy completely vanished. As all that was going through his head, he brought out the timer thing and saw it was almost time to head back to the meeting spot, so he got ready to leave. Cut to the rendezvous point, and the ladies were already there waiting for the boys to return. The first one to arrive was our hero, and seeing that smile on Suiti's face, he asked if she found something good this time, and the girl answered she did, but it was a secret. That was when he remembered about the two idiots and began looking around to find them. And since there was no sign of either of them, he asked Nona if she knows anything about it. The answer was a no, and she was starting to get worried about the two. But Sa was sure the two idiots were fine. They just got into another fight or something, and heard Youngjae's voice asking her not to call him an idiot. Seeing the mess he was, she asked what had happened. Youngjae tried telling her what happened, but was immediately cut off by our hero, who asked where Junsik was and why the two of them weren't together. To his horror, he heard the kid saying he suddenly disappeared while they were looking for supplies, and he figured he came back to this place before him. Doha realized something was wrong, so he reached into his bag and brought out his rifle for Nona while instructing her to head to the engine room and wait for him there. As for him, he was heading to the last place where that kid was seen to look for him. But obviously the woman protested and suggested both of them look for him together, but our hero assured the woman he was going to be fine on his own. After all, this was a husband's job to make sure his family is safe. Yeah, no, she was caught completely by surprise, so our grinning idiot told the woman he was just messing with her, like how she did to him on that rooftop, and the woman, annoyed a little, told him to stop teasing her. After a while, the three of them were seen in the engine room looking for the kid, and the one with the bruised face was shouting for the fool to show himself so he could end him with his own hands. Our hero was in the clothing section, but no luck, so he made it to another part of the building. Same thing, not a single sign of any life anywhere. Eventually, he made it to the snack section where he was last seen and noticed something on the floor. Looking down, he saw the same can of Pringles lying next to his feet, so he picked the thing up, wondering who could have tossed this thing on the ground. In the middle of his thoughts, he suddenly heard voices coming from the side. Sure enough, as he turned to the location, he found the kid busy playing video games. Yeah, he was not, and I repeat, not happy seeing the sight since this idiot scared all of them half to death. Still angry, he walked up to the kid asking if he even knew what time it was, but the kid, still not realizing what kind of mess he was in, asked if he wanted to play as well. Yeah, no, when they get back home, no snacks for him for a whole week, and he was grounded. Obviously, he tried defending himself, and what he said at that moment shook Dota to his core as he heard the kid saying that someone invited him to this place and asked him to play video games with him. Our hero asked what was he talking about, since the only person he could see in this place was him. The kid pointed to a direction, and sure enough, our hero heard the voices of buttons being mashed coming from that place. Yeah, no, the first thing he did was reach for his weapon, after which he instructed the kid to stay here while he goes to check it out. Junsik tried asking what had gotten into him all of a sudden, but for some reason the kid, instead of answering, kept walking to the direction, and then his eyes landed on the man, and it was a sight he was not expecting to come across anytime soon, because the guy Junsik was talking about was none other than Friday, the same maniac who ended the whole world. Next chapter, and Nona was seen asking the kid what had gotten into him all of a sudden, and our hero, unsure of whether he should tell her what he saw in that mart, was telling the woman to pack up as much supplies as possible because they were leaving. She tried asking the reason because he was acting weird ever since they left that building. The story cut to the time our hero found Junsik playing video games and found Friday in the same room, who was complaining how he ended up losing 9 times in a row to that kid, and was furious, since back then the two of them made a bet whoever loses would have to get flicked on the forehead, and he was furious since that kid's flicks actually hurt a lot. As for our hero, hearing those words, he was not really sure what he was supposed to do at this moment and why this lunatic was so obsessed with beating a kid in a video game. But one thing was certain, he needed to hold out for as long as possible in order to buy the rest time to escape. So he got in his stance and prepared to confront the guy, but surprisingly, he heard the man tell him not to look at him like that, saying he was a man of his word and wouldn't take it out on him since he lost to that kid fair and square. But there was just one thing. He promised the kid that after they are done with the video games they were going to play hide and seek, and suggested he start running and hide as far away from this place as possible, since he wasn't planning on losing this time. Back in the present, our hero was telling Nona he had to do this in order to save everyone. Seeing that look on his face, Nona knew something was definitely wrong, so once again she tried asking what was going on. But before she could, they heard a loud thud ringing outside of their house. Terrified, our hero immediately ran to the door to see what had just happened. And the sight before them left both of them in shock because there it was, a whole pile of gifts sitting in front of their home. Our hero realized what this meant, so he asked the woman to grab the kids since they were leaving immediately. The story cuts a couple of years into the past and a kid was seen jumping in excitement since he won first place in some competition. And in the same place was Junsik, who was staring at the kid in confusion, since even though he also won first place in one of the events, he didn't feel anything like that child, and he wondered why. After the competition was over, he prepared to head back home, and came across a mother who was comforting her son since he was crying that he wanted his mother to praise him for coming first like the other kids. And that was when Junsik finally realized why he was not feeling happy like the rest of the kids. It was because he had no family to share this moment with. Cut to Bampo Bridge, where someone was heard crying for some reason. It was our gang, and Nona was telling Youngjae not to cry since Santa never gives presents to kids who cry. Junsik, all happy and stuff, told Youngjae he never cries, so he was sure to get something good this year, but was reminded by Seiya they were in this situation because of him, meaning he'd done something bad, and Santa doesn't give gifts to bad kids either. On top of that, not like it mattered since Santa wasn't real anyway, and that one statement shattered Junsik's whole belief system. And since he refused to believe her, she told the kid their Santa had always been their big brother Doha. As the two of them were busy with their usual bickering, Nuna was asking our hero how much longer they would need to walk since it was getting dark and the snow was getting heavier. Our boy told them to hang on for just a while longer since as soon as they came across the next empty house they would stop to spend the night there. That was good and all, but Youngjae also had a question, so he called out to our hero, and when asked what was going on, he saw the kid pointing to the side telling him about a bunch of snowmen that looked kinda weird to him. Yeah, our hero knew those things were no snowmen, but he told the kids to just ignore them. After a while, all of them were seen completely exhausted, even Nona. And just like before, our hero was assuring the gang they were almost there, and asked them to stay strong for a bit longer. By then, even Nona was starting to doubt him, so she asked if he was sure this was the right way, because they had been walking for hours now and the kids were about to hit their limit. But the answer was the same. They were almost there, so he asked them to hold on a bit longer. But the truth was, even he didn't know when they'd get there. And to make it worse, their visibility was slowly dropping to zero because of the extreme snowfall, which was also strange because the climate had been changing way too fast recently, and this kind of heavy snow was never normal for Korea. Just then, as he was thinking all that, Sewa suddenly collapsed due to exhaustion, and that caused panic in the whole group. Taking her in his arms, he noticed the girl was still breathing but was completely unresponsive, and seeing her in this condition, Doha did not know what he was supposed to do because everyone was asking him to do something. That was when a person was seen walking up to the gang, noticing the light. Our hero turned to see who it was and found a man standing there asking him to follow unless he wants to die in this cold. The story cuts to an apartment building, and inside was our gang, who followed the old man to this place. And since the boys were being boys, Nona reminded the two to thank the good man for letting them into his house. As for the guy, he simply pointed to the shower, instructing them not to stay in too long since hot water was limited. As for our hero, he was taking Sewa to the side so the girl could rest. That was when he heard the man's voice calling out to him, and he had just one question. What the hell was he thinking bringing all those kids through such a blizzard? Since if he was a little late, all of them would have been popsicles by now. Since our hero couldn't reveal the reason, he just thanked the man. And the man, realizing it was something the kid wasn't comfortable sharing, just told the kid not to make mistakes he'll regret later on. Watching the guy, our hero wondered if this man could be plotting something because no matter how he sees this situation, staying in this place for long seems dangerous. As he was pondering whether he should take all of them and push on, he heard Nona's voice telling him to go and wash up. Turning to the woman, he found her smiling, praising him for holding up this well today. but our boy refused to accept he did anything right, since the truth was he didn't know when they were going to arrive at that place, and despite knowing the risk, he kept pushing them to keep going. So he apologized to the girl for lying and putting all their lives in danger. The woman herself agreed what he did back then was reckless, since if it was not for this man they would probably not have made it. But she also knew he would not do something so reckless without a reason, because only she knew how much he cared for all of them and always put them first above himself, and reminded him what he told her that day, that all of them were a family, so he didn't need to carry this burden all by himself. But quickly changing topics, she started messing with his hair since according to her, he looked better with his forehead showing. And guess what? Our Chad actually mustered up some courage to tell the woman he liked her better with her hair down. Cut to the old man who was in his room having a smoke. And no, he wasn't plotting anything, he was just staring at a picture of what seemed to be his wife and child whom he lost after the chaos. And still holding on to hope, he refused to admit they were gone, which was why he had been searching for them this whole time. Back with our hero who was done and was telling Nuna to go freshen up, so the woman called out to Sewa, since both of them were going to take a shower together. With the women gone, he walked up to his bag, brought out the map and began planning their next move because they were still not out of the woods yet, and his plan now was to somehow find a way to cross the sea and find some safe place as far away from this country as possible, and hope that psychopath doesn't find them. But then in such a serious moment, he heard his weird child's voice, who was munching on raw potatoes and was offering some to him. Oh damn, no way. These guys are screwed. But for some reason, neither of them noticed the one they were trying to escape, looking at them from outside the window. As for our hero, he was asking the kid if the man he met in that mart said something to him that sounded strange. The answer was a no, all they did was play together. And just as our hero asked, what did they play, he heard knocking on the window. And yeah, the moment he saw who it was, his heart sank because that maniac was staring right at the kid. Terrified, he shouted at the kid to run. But by then it was too late to find cover, since the guy was already ready to blast the whole apartment into chunks. Our boy turned to cover the kid to shield him from the explosion, but before he could, the massive blast struck him head-on, followed by an explosion that covered that whole section of the building. And from that blast appeared our hero with severe burn marks all over his body as he plummeted from that multi-story building toward the ground. And at that moment, he heard Nona's voice telling Junsik to grab her hand tightly. As for the one responsible, he was already getting ready to finish the job and take out all the survivors with one last attack. Seeing the sight, all those memories suddenly began rushing back to him. How he first met the four and how they followed him since they didn't have anyone else to rely on. And all those times they spent together, having fun like one happy little family, especially Nuna, as he recalled that warm smile of hers that always showed up whenever he was feeling down or lost. And then he saw it, the whole place lighting up in a burst of fire. Next chapter, and a person was seen asking himself what a family meant to him, and the answer was everything. And as those words rang through the place, the image of all four of them shifted as he saw their bodies covered in red liquid as they called his name. And at that moment, he heard all their voices reminding him of the promise he made to them, that they were a family, and he was going to protect them no matter what. As soon as those words hit his ears, a sudden mix of rage and helplessness surged through his mind. Next panel, and he was seen jolting up while screaming back into the real world. For a moment, he froze, unsure of what was going on and how he got here. That was when he looked at his bloodied hands and recalled what had happened. Out of nowhere, he heard a voice from the side showing relief that he was still alive, and when he turned around, he saw the same man who saved them earlier standing next to him. As for his family, yeah, my heart sank when I read the man saying none of them survived that blast. Cut a couple of minutes later, Doha was seen digging through the rubble to find anyone while helplessly screaming their names, but no matter how much he tried or called out, he got no answer. Seeing his condition and how badly he was losing it, the man finally had had enough, so he stopped the man since he'd been at it for so long that the skin on his hands was literally starting to tear off his fingers. But our grieving hero still refused to accept his family was gone and kept murmuring they were still alive and he needed to save them. But the guy who knew that look all too well shouted at the kid to pull himself together and admit all of them were gone because he wasn't going to gain anything by denying it. Our hero, who just lost everything, shouted back at the guy, asking what he was supposed to do then, since there was no point in living if they were gone. Holding back his rage and tears, he told the man they were the first real family he ever had, and now all of them were gone. But then a third voice suddenly cut through the chaos as they heard a man claiming all of them were still alive. Turning around, he spotted a fat man saying he saw everything with his own eyes and saw his family was unharmed. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Doha began walking up to the man asking if what he was saying was really true. But in the middle of all that, he heard the man telling him to stop, and the reason was he won't be giving him that information for free, so if he wanted answers, he would first need to give him food for 20 people, which also included some spicy tuna, because he was craving it. But the old man saw through his lie immediately and called out the fat pig for trying to take advantage of a broken man. Yeah, boys, I don't know about you guys, but this fat pig deserves to be taken out in the worst way imaginable for lying and giving us false hope, because turns out the old man's intuition was right on the money. He is indeed trying to use Doha, but refusing to admit that he was lying, he started screaming at the old man instead. But to our hero, it didn't matter if that man was lying or not, and he begged the person to help him and promised he was going to get him as much food as he wants, and asked if he wants anything special as well. Why, this damned fat grinning bastard, he had the nerve to ask him to find him some fried ramen as well. After a while, our hero was seen getting ready to head out and find food for that fat man, and once again, the old man tried reasoning with the kid because he was sure even he wasn't foolish enough to believe what that man was saying was really true. He told our hero to keep a cool head since that man was just using his family as leverage to use him, but to our boy, nothing else mattered anymore. He needed something, anything that would give him some hope in finding his family. And just before walking away, he reminded the old man they just met, so they weren't that close for him to be worrying about him. And besides, he was sure the old man didn't even know what it felt like to lose a family. Yeah, he knew the pain all too well, which was why he knew exactly what he was going through. So he told the kid not to throw away his life after struggling this far, because that's what his family would have wanted from him, for him to live to the end. Doha just thanked the man for letting them stay the night at his home, and promised he was going to repay his kindness one day, after which the old man saw the kid slowly disappearing into the blizzard. The story cuts to the past when one day our hero suddenly found Nona panicking, and when asked what was going on, he heard the woman saying that the kids still hadn't come home yet, and she was blaming herself for it since she was the one who allowed them to leave the house, since they promised they would be back soon. Our hero assured the woman everything would be fine, instructed her to stay here and keep the doors locked, and got ready to head out to look for them. Cut to the evening, and after looking everywhere, he wasn't able to find the three anywhere, so in the end he returned home to see if they got back on their own. Otherwise, he was planning on going out again. But just as he opened the door, he was met with an unexpected sight. Since turns out this was planned by the four of them, they just wanted him to leave the house for a couple of hours so they could prepare a surprise birthday party for him. But our innocent little hero still had no clue what was going on. On top of that, it wasn't even his birthday. Well, it didn't matter if it was his birthday or not because today was the 1-year anniversary of when they first met. Plus, since even he didn't know when his birthday was, they all decided to treat today as his birthday. Nona also apologized for scaring him like that, but she had no other choice since the kids insisted on her help because they wanted to bake a cake for him with their own hands. Sure enough, turning to Soa, he saw her all excited holding the thing in her hands, but then she noticed something about the thing, so she turned to the idiot standing beside her, who had taken a large bite out of the thing without asking for permission. Well, damn, I wonder how many of you guys would get this reference. As for our hero, back then what he felt that day was something he had never known before. The kind of love only a real family could give, and a warmth that filled the empty space inside him. Cut back to the present, and he was finally back with everything the man asked for. He even brought more than needed, and the guy was extremely happy about the haul. Doha told the man he wasn't really sure what kind of food he liked, so he brought him everything he could get his hands on. And since he had done his part of the deal, he asked the man to tell him everything he knew about his family. To that, the man got all serious as he prepared to tell him the whole story, and this damned fat piece of shit, thinking that the kid was some idiot, started spewing random stuff about Friday hovering in the air, and to end it off said then he saw the guy vanishing. Why, this fat pig, after spewing all that nonsense, he turned to the kid and with that grin asked if he was satisfied with that answer. At first, our hero didn't know how he was supposed to respond to everything he just heard coming out of his mouth, so he asked the guy to clarify because he didn't understand anything and asked what else can he tell him about what he saw during that time. And the fatso answered he did see more details, but he was too hungry to recall the whole thing, and suggested he head out and bring him more stuff to eat, and maybe that would jog his memory. The moment those words hit our boy's ears, his expressions completely shifted, and realizing the fat man was using his family to mess with him, he prepared to make him regret it. But instead, he heard another voice from the side telling him to stop while asking what was so special about his family anyway, and suggested he stop making such a big deal about such a trivial matter. And before he knew it, he found himself standing before an army of muscular men who were with the fat man. With his back up here, the fat man finally showed his true colors, and he had the nerve to claim he was being nice to him. But the kids started treating him like trash because of that, so they were going to teach him a lesson, even claiming he would not be the first guy they had taken out. Just then, the cockiest one of them all walked up to our hero, offering him to join them since they were also worried about his family and wanted to find them, and the reason was that beautiful woman he was traveling with, since that lady had such an irresistible body. Before he could finish that line, he was seen spinning into the air like a fidget spinner. As for our hero, yeah, something within him shifted at that moment. So, to show the fat pig what happens when someone crosses him and disrespects his family, he raised his arm and then bam, a loud thud echoed through the entire building. And oh boy, he was not done, because almost immediately came the second punch and then the third. And if you are thinking he was done, then think again, because all those men stared at the scene in horror as the sounds of those fists that hit like gunshots rang all around them. After his brain finally caught up to what they were seeing, the fat man screamed at the kid to stop, and seeing the condition his friend was in, he asked in panic what if that man would have died. Well, it turns out he didn't need to worry about that because that guy was indeed dead. As for what they claimed earlier, that he wouldn't be the first person they delete, well, that was quite the coincidence, since this wasn't going to be his first time either. But the fool, still not realizing how much he messed up, just dismissed that warning as nothing but empty talk, after which he introduced him to his two friends, both former pro athletes. And not just them, even the rest of the guys in the room were highly trained fighters, and since he had already wasted enough time with the kid, he shouted for all of them to break every bone in his body. As soon as he gave the order, our hero found himself surrounded from all sides. I thought he was going to start breaking the fools, but no. One of them, claiming to be the second-ranked welterweight boxer in the city, grabbed him by his hair and pulled him back. But instead of fighting back or trying anything to break himself free, our boy asked him a question if he knows where his family was, and that question earned him a punch on the face because he was clearly looking down on the fool, and in his anger the bastard proceeded to stomp on the kid. But in the middle of that, he lifted his leg, and this time as he brought it down on the kid, our hero moved out of the way, and before he knew it, our boy had the man's leg in his arms. After which he repeated his earlier question, where was his family? But since the guy wasn't answering, he realized the guy has no idea, which also meant he was of no use to him, so he disposed of the guy. After taking care of that one, he turned towards the rest with the same question. That fat man, on the other hand, was reaching his limit, and in his anger he shouted for the rest to stop staring at the man and do something. Following his command, all of them charged in, and this time our hero actually moved, and damn, he did not just move, he vanished. And then boom, out of nowhere a fist appeared in front of one of the guy's face, shattering his skull instantly. And in mere seconds, the rest of the charging fools were seen flying through the air as the kid slowly made his way towards the fat man. Seeing this, another much larger man stepped in his way to try and stop him, and using his fighting knowledge, he somehow managed to stop our boy's leg. Yeah, no, he wasn't anything special, so our hero just spun around and landed his other leg at the back of his head. And I don't know if you guys know it or not, but damn, that's the last place you want to get kicked. Using the chance, another guy moved in to knock the kid out while he was distracted. Yeah, not even close, our hero's spidey senses kicked in, he ducked, and then bam, right under his chin, followed by a fist to his liver, and to finish off the beautiful combo, elbow on the side of his face, successfully burying him into the ground. Surprisingly, the guy was tougher than he looked, because even though he turned into a vegetable for the rest of his life, he was still alive, so our hero did him a favor and ended his misery by stomping on his face. Even after he took out so many of the fools, there still were some who hadn't realized their situation. And one of them, thinking he was in a wrestling match or something, leaped into the air to dropkick our boy. And well, he succeeded, and our hero went flying back through the air. But still, something like that was far from enough to stop him, so he immediately started getting back on his feet. But that one mistake gave another guy an opening, and this one went for our hero's throat to crush his windpipe. And this Frankenstein-looking fool was confident our boy was done for because before this day, no one had been able to break themselves out of his grip. Yeah, not sure what he was thinking because our hero just lifted his legs, wrapped them around his arm, and dropped back to the ground, completely overpowering the man. And this fool, thinking he was in some ring or something, started tapping while begging our hero to stop, saying he gave up. Then came the reality check, because if he was ready to crush his neck, he should be willing enough to face the consequences. As for his arm, that thing is completely fucked. No amount of surgery is fixing that thing to 100%. With the guy screaming on the ground, our hero got back to his feet, and since the fool was making his ears hurt with that screaming, our hero got ready to shut him up. And yeah, this happened. A human head isn't supposed to bend like that. Well, at least the guy was now silent, and I'm positive he isn't snoring right now. Well, enough jokes. With the piles of bodies scattered all around him, our boy slowly started making his way towards the fat man. But surprise, surprise, there were even more of those fools, and after seeing what that man was capable of, they decided to change tactics and use weapons to stop him instead. With those things in hand, they stood in his way and tried to look as intimidating as possible to scare him, but in the very next panel, all their grins dropped because even seeing what they were holding in their hands, the kid kept walking towards them. And at that moment, their survival instincts started kicking in, and they slowly began to realize the man standing before them wasn't a human anymore, but something else. And that terrified one of them so much that he legit dropped the weapon and bolted in the opposite direction. Following him, the rest of the guys also did the same, and while screaming that they don't want to do this anymore, all of them ran out of the building. And in the end of it, the fat man was the only one left standing there in pure disbelief, because despite them outnumbering that man several times over, his men were the ones running away like cowards, and at that time, nothing made sense to him anymore. As for our hero, he stopped in front of the guy and asked why he looked like he was lost in some thoughts, and at that time, seeing the towering man standing before him, the only thing the man could muster out of his mouth was a sorry. Next panel, boom, our boy's fist landed right on the side of the man's ribs, and the guy was legit fighting to keep his organs from spilling out. Our boy, with that furious expression, told the man to stop saying sorry. After forcing some air back into his lungs, the man told the kid what he did was wrong, but also pointed out that he never did anything worth being taken out for. Yeah, that's where he was wrong. He used his family's name to use him, which was reason enough for him to snap him like a twig. And then it began. Our boy started squeezing that double chin of his using all his power, and just as he was about to send him off to the afterlife, the man opened his mouth and told the kid he might know where he could find his family if they were still alive. Yeah, like our boy was going to fall for that twice, so he told the man to save his breath and began squeezing him even harder for trying to deceive him again, using his family's name. But till the very end, the guy didn't give up and told the kid he wasn't lying this time, and if he didn't believe him, he can meet up with Friday to confirm it himself. Hearing that bastard's name, the kid released the man and asked what he meant by meet with him himself. Fat Man told him it was just as he had said, he knows where he can find Friday. A couple of minutes later, our boy was holding a poster in his hand about something called a hero church. Well, turns out, after ending the world, that fool ended up making a whole-ass religion around him and even gathered a lot of followers to do his bidding, who call him their savior. And that wasn't the only strange thing, because according to the Fat Man, the leaders of that hero church claim themselves to be heroes, meaning those people clearly were special. As for the followers, not anyone can enter into that organization. The only people who are allowed in are directly recognized by Friday himself. In the middle of him speaking, the heel of our boy's foot came crashing on his hand, and the reason he did that was because he didn't care about any of that. All he wanted to know was where he could find Friday. Holding back his scream, the man quickly told the kid the leaders of that church know the answer to that question, and that earned him another broken hand. And this time, our boy reminded the fool of what he said earlier, that he knows where Friday was, but now he was saying he would need to ask someone else for his location. But still, this info was better than nothing, so he got ready to head to that place to find the answers himself. But he wasn't planning on going there by himself. He needed a guide, and that guide was Fatman himself. Yeah, no, even knowing saying no meant the kid was going to end him, the man still refused to go to that cursed place. Cut to the church, and inside the place, a man was seen standing before a picture of Friday. That was when he suddenly heard a voice from the back calling out to him, so he turned and found an innocent little girl showing him a picture she made of him. That was when a bunch of adults also came running into the room to stop the girl, and seeing that the girl was disturbing the man, they told the kid to apologize to the guy, and the child did. Patting the girl's head, the man assured her there was no need to say sorry. After all, a child's mistakes are an adult's responsibility. As for this guy's name, this right here is Gimsu, hero of the Jamsul branch of the church. Back with the Fat Man who was telling our boy about these people and how these fanatics periodically meet with Friday, so they were his best chance of getting to that guy. But before sending him off, he gave the kid one final advice, and that was not to go to that place, because according to him, these people were even more messed up in the head than Friday himself. And guess the reason these people are lying on the ground motionless right now? It's because they entered into this place without taking off their shoes. A little backstory about this guy, he was just a kid. And yeah, that's all you get, since our hero didn't care about any of that backstory nonsense. He came here to break some bones, and that's all that matters. So he got straight to the point and asked the man where Friday was. Confused, the man asked for his identity, and what was he doing, barging into this sacred place? On top of that, he was sure there were a bunch of believers standing guard outside. So how did he get in here? Our boy just pointed to the fools sleeping on the ground behind him and asked if he was talking about them. As for the Fat Man, he tried asking if he could leave, but our hero wasn't done with him, so he politely told him to stand here while he goes to have a word with the blonde freak. Turning back at the man, he demanded that he tell him where that bastard Friday was hiding. Yeah, he probably should not have said that because the man's veins started bulging like crazy hearing him say those words. Seeing his reaction, our boy thought about it for a second and then asked if he should have called him a son of a bee instead. Next panel, bam, he was right next to the man's face to knock some answers out of him, and then boom, his fist landed on the man's body. But then in that very same second, something completely unexpected happened as our hero found himself floating in the air. And before he knew it, he was seen flying to the opposite direction and crashed through a wall. As for the man himself, he just stared at the location in confusion since he never expected him to be this aggressive. Meanwhile, the Fat Man was standing there in absolute shock, unsure of what he even saw just now, because that man's reaction speed was inhuman. As for the technique he just used on the kid and how fast he executed it, it was something not even a former elite like himself would have been able to see in his prime. And that got him wondering just what kind of monsters was this country hiding. Just then, as he was thinking that, he didn't even realize when the guy moved behind him. And since he committed the crime of stepping into this place with those dirty shoes, he got ready to punish the guy properly. But before he could, he heard a voice from the side telling him he wasn't done talking. Turning to the location, he saw our hero walking out of the rubble, and since he didn't have time for his nonsense, he asked the man to bring Friday to him. Next panel, and the kid was airborne. But once again, the blonde man managed to move out of the way at the final second. But here's the thing, our hero was not done, so he immediately spun around in the air and came crashing down to deliver a kick to the man's face. And the impact was so powerful that the whole building was seen shaking because of the force. But despite that, it was our hero who seemed surprised, and the reason was the same. That man somehow dodged that attack as well. Furious, he quickly spun around to break his jaw, but by now the guy was done having his fun, so he teleported behind our hero with some wires in his hands, and just as he was about to completely tie them around the kid's throat, our hero somehow moved his hand in there to save his neck. As for the grinning fool, he told the kid there was no use struggling since there was no way he would be able to break those things, since this was a wire used to catch spearfish, a 900-kilo monster, and even those things can't break free once caught in these. But then in the middle of that, he suddenly noticed something and froze. Looking closer, he saw that it was a bunch of scars on our hero's back. He tried asking the kid who gave him those, but before he could, he noticed the wire around his neck starting to loosen up. And the reason was that the man before him was so strong that he managed to shatter that thing into pieces with just his brute strength. And that was something the blonde man wasn't expecting to see from this guy. And that brought a smile on his face since he never thought such a big catch was going to walk straight onto his doorstep. Watching the kid walking up to him, the man asked him to stop, and when asked the reason, he heard the guy saying he was willing to take him to Friday. The story cuts to a car making its way somewhere, and inside was the fat man sitting across some muscular dude, still trying to process how he even got here, and in the back was the same blonde with our hero, and all of them were making their way to some unknown location. In the middle of his thinking, he heard the blonde man's voice calling for our hero's attention, and it was some weird speech about something regarding human history, which I really don't care about, so I'll keep it short. Basically, these sickos believe that violence is the key to everything, even happiness. He told the kid how throughout history, humans have always chosen violence to solve their problems, even when there were better solutions available, and for him, he was claiming those people were right to do so, because violence is much cleaner and faster than words, and that was one of the things that piqued his curiosity about our hero, since he chose violence to get the answers he was looking for, instead of using his words. Our hero tried asking the lunatic what he was trying to say, but was interrupted by some people staring at him from outside the car. That obviously caught him by surprise, so he asked the man what was going on and who these people were, and most importantly, why did they seem so excited after seeing his face. Instead of answering, the man stepped out of the car while continuing his nonsense about violence, after which they continued making their way into some kind of building where our hero noticed a lot more people who seemed to be excited after seeing him arrive with the guy. As for why he was brought to this place, it was because this is the stage where he was going to become a hero. The scene cuts to the main arena where two fighters were seen standing face to face to start their match. The first one was a giant wrestler named Mac Diamond, facing off against a raggedy old man on the verge of collapse. As soon as the signal was given, the towering man ran straight at the old guy to finish him off quickly, and after getting in range, he jumped into the air, and boom. Not sure about you guys, but I was hoping to see some Baki action here like what Kakukayo did to his opponents who underestimated him, but no, this is the last day of that old man on this planet. The story cuts back 5 years to Mount Baekdu, and we are shown a 24-year-old Jumsu, before he became the psychopathic maniac who believes violence is the solution to every problem and takes out people for getting his church carpet dirty with their shoes. Back then, humanity was still on the run trying to escape from Friday, but they weren't so lucky, and shortly after that, they were discovered. But the reaction they got from Friday on that day wasn't one they were expecting, because instead of being excited about the whole situation, the man started sobbing because he was bored seeing the same reaction from people every time they saw him. And since he was bored of seeing fear everywhere he goes, he got ready to end all of them and leave. Just as he said those words, everyone noticed the whole place shaking violently with cracks forming on the ground around them. And the reason was the massive mountain before them, which somehow responded to Friday's command as thick streams of lava burst out, followed by a rain of fire. Realizing this was their end, all the humans began running trying to save themselves. And at that time, 15 minutes before their death, a man was seen staring at the whole thing in confusion. And the reason was he never thought he was going to die such a meaningless death, and to make it worse, he never got to feel a woman's warmth his entire life, and that was one thing he regretted the most. And at that time, as everyone lost hope, he spotted a person panicking next to him, and seeing the sight, something inside of him snapped, and before he knew it, he had the person pinned under him. But before he could do anything, an old man appeared, telling the man to get a grip. But then something even more unexpected happened as a wooden stick was seen smashing onto the back of the guy's neck. And the one responsible was some muscular guy who used to work under this old man when the world was still intact, and this was payback for all those years he had to listen to his old ass. Ironically, it didn't stop there. That behavior started spreading like a plague as human nature began to reveal itself in the face of death. And in the middle of it all was Gimsu, who was watching the whole chaos and confusion. Just then, he heard someone laughing to the side, so he turned to see who it was and found Friday praising all of them for showing him something so exciting after so long. And at that moment, Shamsu realized something. Friday was delighted by humanity's violence. Back in the present, that muscle guy was swinging the old man around like a ragdoll all around the arena to break as many bones as possible before ending him. In the crowd was our hero, listening to the messed up story of this lunatic who was claiming that it was violence that saved all of them on that day. So in order to express his gratitude to Friday, he started holding festivals like this one every day. Yeah, no, our hero realized this man was too far gone since he had been hosting death battles for the entertainment of a guy responsible for all their suffering. But according to the man, this was not only for Friday's entertainment, and the proof was all around him, the cheers of all these people driving the men to fight even harder. Cut back to the man who was just about ready to end this little show, and boom, red liquid was seen flying through the air, and once again I was hoping to see some Baki action here, but no, it was that old man's red liquid that we just saw. But wait, that muscle guy noticed something strange, so he looked down and realized that the old man was still alive, and the reason he was alive was because he had no teeth for the man to break. Basically, his gums were like he was wearing a mouthpiece. As the man was getting ready to land another punch on the guy's head, he saw two fingers coming for his eyes, and then boom, the fight was over. The whole arena fell silent, seeing the sight. As for the old guy, he wasn't done with the man, so he used his thumbs to give him a good ear cleaning, and the guy was so grateful that he fell at that old man's feet to show his respect. Cut back to our hero and the fat man who were staring at the whole thing in disbelief, and after a few moments of silence, the whole place filled with noise once more as everyone began cheering for the old guy. And none of this made any sense to our hero because after seeing what happened to that guy, how can all these people still cheer like this and look so happy? Turning to the one behind all of this, he heard the man asking if he finally sees what he was trying to say, and with that same smile, he told the kid that violence has a sacred power to make everyone happy. Our hero just grabbed him by his collar and pulled him closer while telling him to stop spouting that ridiculous nonsense, because the only reason he came here was to meet Friday. Surprisingly, the man knew full well why he was trying to find that guy. It was to get his family back, and he somehow even knew the names of all those people. Yeah, that confirmed it for our hero. This man definitely knew something, so he demanded that he tell him everything. Well, it turns out if he wanted answers, he would need to first participate in these death matches, and if he manages to reach the top and become a hero, he can even meet Friday face to face. The scene cuts to a dangerous-looking woman who is asking someone about a black-haired man, and if he was the one she was informed about, and seems like she is also standing in the same crowd. And the reason she was showing so much interest in that guy was because he was their new fighter, who she was going to be handling. Back with our hero, who was asking the man if he was saying that if he fights for him, he will take him to meet with Friday, and the answer was a yes. Yeah, no hesitation. Our hero told the man to bring in everyone because he was going to smash all of them in just one night. Although the guy was amused by his attitude, he told the kids sadly they can't do that because tonight's festival ends at 10, so they don't have that kind of time. But he did promise him everything would be ready for tomorrow's festival and suggested he rest up for the night. And just before leaving, he told him the one important rule about this place, which was that violence is prohibited outside of the arena. That was the last thing he expected to hear coming from a psychopath's mouth, so he asked the reason. Turns out, according to their messed up beliefs, violence is something more sacred than anything around here, so using it without purpose is no different from blasphemy. In the middle of speaking, he spotted a female walking up to them, and yeah, it was that same woman who was supposed to manage our boy. As for our hero, the moment his eyes landed on that woman, he froze, because the woman standing before him was none other than his Nuna, or so he thought. Man, I was so thrown off at this part when I read this, but no, that woman just looks like Nuna, and he mistook her for a moment. Or did he? Who knows? Maybe it truly is her, just not fully recognizable because of that makeup. The story cuts to the next morning, and inside one of the apartment buildings was our hero working out, and he had been doing this the whole night. As for his motivation, it was the picture of his family, which he kept looking at the whole time. And no, he wasn't the only one in that room. There was someone else there, someone much more dangerous than Friday himself at the moment for the kid, thanks to all that testosterone running through him. Yup, Nona's lookalike who spent the whole night in the same room as him, and was disappointed that even with such a beauty staying in the same room with him, the kid did not even try to make a move on her. And that was a blow to her pride, but our Chad, clearly not interested, asked the woman what she wanted from him, and what was she doing in the same room as him. She answered, informing him that this was part of her job description, to analyze her fighters and make sure they are in top condition before the fights. And after observing him for the whole night, she could tell his body was definitely over 100%, which was why she was curious to know something. Surprised, our hero asked what it was, but the woman just smiled back, telling him it was nothing special, and suggested they head to the arena. Cut to the place, which was packed to the brim with people, all gathered here to watch maniacs beat each other to the afterlife. And the sight surprised our hero since he never expected to come across so many humans in one place. Seeing him making that face, the woman knew what he was thinking, so she told the kid he was looking at about 10,000 people right now. That number was just absurd for an event like this, but according to the woman, it wasn't surprising. After all, fights are fun to watch, and more importantly, these people are tired of living in hiding, struggling for scraps to survive, so they wanted to escape reality, and their Jamsil branch provides that escape. And surprisingly, this woman is just as messed up in the head as that blonde who started all this, since she was calling him a hero for giving them this twisted joy and violence. Yeah, no. Our hero told the woman to stop spewing nonsense since he was not here for their messed up religious bull, plus creating an arena full of violence. That is not something a hero would do. The woman smiled and pointed to the side at all those people, telling the kid to take a look around, since even after the world had practically ended, all these people were voluntarily maintaining order just to watch the match, and asked if he still thinks violence wasn't the answer for this kind of order. Just then, he saw another cutie walking up to them who was calling the woman her team leader. No greetings, no nothing. She instructed the girl to head out and set up the matches as quickly as possible for their fighter, and the girl obeyed. After she was gone, she continued her messed up reasoning about this whole thing, and how violence in that arena may make one person miserable, but it would bring happiness for the rest. Our hero asked if she was saying he needed to sacrifice his humanity and instead fight in that arena like a wild beast just so others could find joy seeing all that suffering, and the woman answered yes. After all, according to her, making sacrifices is a hero's virtue, which is why not everyone can become a hero. Just then, he saw the same bubbly-looking girl running back, telling our hero to head to Arena 2 and wait for his match to start. Before sending him off, the woman told the kid in order to meet Friday, he must first become a hero, and for that, he must meet that blonde man's standards, which would not be possible by just winning. What he needs is to win overwhelmingly. Cut to the arena where the announcer was introducing our hero to the crowd as a rookie fighter making his debut. No experience in arena fights and unknown skills, a 109cm fighter weighing 88 kilograms named Park Dong-hwa, and his opponent, a former professional fighter named Mak Gergerog. As for the crowd, they were going wild, everyone cheering for the seasoned fighter. And with that, the signal to start the match was given, and everyone saw Gergerog being lifted into the air, and boom, he crashed hard in the worst way imaginable. Next panel, boom, a fist came crashing on the man's face. Just as our hero thought the fight was over, the man lifted his legs and locked our boy's arm in a choke. Turns out this freak was born with abnormal flexibility and has insane endurance compared to a normal human. Like that was going to stop our hero, so he began lifting the guy into the air using nothing but his brute strength, and before the man knew it, he was hoisted several feet from the ground and bam, he got smashed back on the hard floor, followed by our hero's shoulders slamming into his mouth, successfully breaking off his front teeth. But since the guy had good endurance, our hero decided to give him another slam just to be on the safe side. So he lifted him back up, and bam, this time he smashed him down even harder, and that was it. The man was completely knocked out. As for the crowd, the whole place froze after seeing how easily that new fighter took out that man, and almost immediately their attention shifted towards our hero, and they began cheering for him instead. But the referee still had to declare the winner, so he began walking up to the fighter, and yup, the guy, with what little awareness he had left in him, murmured out the words, "He surrenders." And with that, the first round officially came to an end, with our hero declared the winner. And for some reason, the kid seemed like he was enjoying himself after that fight. After a bit, his second opponent stepped into the ring, a much bigger and more intimidating-looking fighter by the name of Park Dusik, with 15 fights, 13 wins, and 2 losses, and damn, what the heck is that face? Well anyway, this man is said to be an armed criminal, and has multiple serial murder charges against him. Yeah, no. In the very next panel, he was seen getting pummeled to the ground by our hero. As for that ugly mug of his, our boy took his sweet time to rearrange it for him so it would look a little less messed up. As for the crowd, safe to say they were not ready for this, because they just lost all their money they bet on that guy. Back with our hero, who was running out of time and patience and was heard asking the referee to bring in his next opponent. Round 4, a much smaller and lean fighter stepped into the ring, and this buck-toothed man is known for his speed and grappling skills, which was perfect for our hero since it meant he won't have to chase him around the whole arena. So as soon as he got in range, he lifted his knee and then boom, he fixed those 2 massive teeth of his for the man free of charge. Yeah, still not satisfied, so he asked for the next fighter to be brought in. Same story there, didn't even last 2 minutes. Same thing in round 6, the guy was nothing special. Round 7 seemed a lot more brutal because that guy's neck looked all twisted. Then came round 8, a much more promising fighter. Yeah, same story, our hero didn't even break a sweat and was getting bored at this point with all these weaklings. And since he was done with all his opponents, he began making his way back to his spot to get ready for the final match of the night. And despite him looking like he went through hell after all that madness, he still had just one thought in his head, as he told his family to please be alive because he was going to come get them soon. Cut to the lady and her assistant who were monitoring all his matches from a distance, and the bubbly one was actually impressed that he managed to get 8 consecutive wins on his debut, and commented how Gumsoo has a good eye for fighters. But the dangerous one didn't share the same thought, because that man never came to watch these matches, which means the fighter brought in this time was still below expectations. But changing topics, she told the woman to prepare for the final round and send the fighter they prepared for the main event. Hearing the announcement, our hero turned to the side to see who he would be fighting in the main event. only to freeze in place because that was the last thing he expected to see tonight. His opponent was a kid by the name of Sim Jin-hoo. Watching the tiny little kid standing before him, Do-ha didn't know what he was supposed to do anymore. And the cheering of the crowd and the kind of things they were saying was not helping his situation either. And at that moment, he wondered just what kind of a place he had walked into, and what made all these people lose their minds to be cheering for him despite seeing that his opponent was just a child. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and if you want to know what happens next, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care.